In a way, I'm glad that we got to extend or postpone our Thanksgiving service. I'm hoping it allowed us to reflect even more about the significance of what being thankful is all about. When, as most of you know, in the Philippines, we don't have a designated Thanksgiving celebration. As far as I know, things have changed over the years. We have a lot of holidays in the Philippines. Almost every month there's something taking children away from school or away from work. But obviously there's an excitement. Fall is my favorite season of the year, and you see the colors are so vibrant, and it adds to just the magnificence of this celebration, truly reminding us what we can be thankful for. Everyone has this probably at home. I'm using it right now. It's a remote control. And I put this as perspective for us. This is an object that we use on a daily basis, and it becomes just part of our everyday living. However, as you know, when you lose it, your life just gets out of whack, right? You're constantly in panic trying to figure out where you left the remote. It seems like there's always a black hole inside our home where things go missing and you can't find them. And the same thing with us at home. We panic because this is such an important tool. But we only realize how useful it is, how valuable it is when it's lost, right? And we start looking for them because they make life easy and special, where we don't have to stand. Do you remember the days where we don't have remotes and you have to go in front of the living room and you have to switch channels? That's when we exercise more. Sadly, there's a give and take. There's pros and cons. So this is just perspective. Like when these things become a normal part of our lives, we tend to overlook the significance of them. Over Thanksgiving weekend, as part of the way we celebrate as a family, we just sat down before bed and asked each other what we are most thankful for. And one of our kids, our youngest, Naomi, she said, and I asked them, think about the things you're thankful for that people normally won't be thankful for. So they thought for a while, and Naomi said, Dad, I'm thankful for homework, right? Most students probably won't be thankful for homework because it ruins their fun and their day about doing stuff that they really like. And so they had to explain why they're thankful for homework. And she said, well, it brings me together with my schoolmates, with my classmates, because we tend to do homework together. So it's our special time to connect with one another. Then Amy said, Dad, I'm thankful for traffic, right? Oh, okay. That's the last thing you probably think about. People don't normally be thankful for traffic. It reminds me that we have a car. It reminds me that we can move around. It reminds me that economy is flowing, goods are flowing. So she just graduated from university, a lot of information in her head about economy and how things work. And it's true. When you see trailer trucks in the highways, that means there's good activity going on in our economy, in our business world. So that's a good sign. I was thankful for the changing dynamics in my family. Jed has just started college last month, and Naomi being in grade 11, and Amy now working. It's rare for us to be together as a family. So I'm thankful for that because it reminds me how important being together as a family. So we look for ways to just catch those special moments, no matter how long or short they may be, just to appreciate the fact that we are changing as a family. They are growing as kids. There's things that Lorraine and I are looking after that take us away also from them. So we just become more intentional. It reminds us how important we are to each other. So that's kind of what we need to spend time on today. This remote control feeling reminds us that there are things we may have overlooked in our lives. When it comes to Thanksgiving, this is a room for improvement for all of us, because we go through our lives thinking that the people and the places and the things around us will just be there when we wake up. But hopefully, you don't appreciate them only when they are lost. There is a saying that you never know the value of what you have until it is taken away from you. So this morning, we are going to go back to Luke. Remember, we have been spending time in Luke since June of this year. So it's been a long gospel series in Luke. So I know Pastor Neri was here last Sunday. He started us on the series in Hebrews, and we will definitely go through that right before Christmas. But I thought we go back to Luke because there's a very important story here that teaches us the value of thanksgiving, the goodness of being grounded in gratitude. So let's go back to this story of the 10 lepers and who were healed by Jesus Christ, and only one came back to give him thanks. The question in our mind should be, how can I cultivate this habit or this practice of being grateful or being thankful for what I have in life, no matter what it is? So I came up with this called the Thanksgiving Triage. It's a checklist. It's a reminder. I love checklists, In school, when we were still studying, even when we're working, there's a checklist we go through, right? What do I need to prepare for work? If we're implementing a project or a system in the office, we have some kind of checklist to make sure everything goes well. So in Thanksgiving, there are things we can ask ourselves to remind us to make our gratitude more deep or richer. So the first is, what are you thankful for? So this question is pretty obvious. It puts into focus or makes us aware, taking a moment to acknowledge specific things or people that enrich our life. So just putting it out there. What are we thankful for? I guess that's the first thing that comes to mind when we want to exercise deeper gratitude. The next takes it a level deeper. Why are you thankful for? Seldom we ask ourselves, why am I thankful for this? Okay? So this is about going deeper and understanding the value of what you are thankful for. Why does it matter to you? What impact does this have in your life? With a grateful heart, you can find absolutely any and every reason to be thankful for. Okay? You can be thankful for just about everything when you think about why this is significant for you. And then, of course, this is kind of like a closed loop system, right? Gratitude is a closed loop system, meaning in order for you to complete the picture, you need to have a response to all of these questions. And one that we often neglect is, who are you thankful to? In Thanksgiving Day, I hear many people, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for that. But one piece that is sorely missing is, who are you thankful for that? That just didn't happen to you. Someone was responsible for that blessing in your life, right? Because it reminds you that gratitude is relational. It exists within a relationship, whether it's with God or with each other or your neighbor or your co-workers, okay? So gratitude must be directed or targeted to someone to make it complete. Gratitude is not just about what we receive, but who gave it to us, okay? It encourages us to shift from a general feeling of just being thankful to a directed appreciation. So think about that very seriously. And then, so this is like your, you've heard about the 5 W's, right? And there's no where here, but I think that's obvious. It may not be as significant as the other ones here. The next is, when did you thank that person or people? Or when did you thank God for it? There is a time element in being grateful. When you give it late, it can cause the value of that appreciation to be diminished, right? When you don't give it in the right time, it seems to lose its significance. The person you're thanking might have, even forgotten about it if they're not really thinking that they should deserve some kind of gratitude from you. But just the same, timing is important in giving thanks. And then lastly, it's how did you express your gratitude to them? My kids have been taking French, especially Naomi. And she told me that Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving in French is action de grâce, So I may not have pronounced that really well. But I love the translation in French because it says it's the act of thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is not just a sentiment, an emotion, or words you express. It's an action. You take steps to express your gratitude. So, the French may have gotten it right. Someone said, gratitude you feel, but don't express, is simply ingratitude by another name. Let me repeat that because that carries a lot of wisdom. Gratitude you feel, but don't express, is simply ingratitude by another name. So I hope you appreciate that going through this triage of Thanksgiving questions will allow you to enrich your gratitude or your ability to cultivate a grateful heart. So I'd like you to practice that when you get home today or even before this service ends today. If there is a person that you want to thank here today, go through this narrative for them. What are you thankful for that person? Why are you thankful for what they are in or what they have been in your life? So it's simply a way to deepen our appreciation and ensure that our thankfulness becomes intentional, it becomes relational, it becomes timely, and it becomes an actionable part of our life. So let's go through our thoughts for today. The first is relational blind spots. How do we forge gratitude in our relationships? I believe with all my heart that gratitude is at the center or at the glue of what holds relationships together. I don't know which philosopher said, but he said that gratitude is the mother of all virtues. That's a very heavy statement to make. Gratitude is the mother of all virtues. Because you see, sometimes in our relationships, whether our family or friends, even God or fellow Christians, we develop blind spots. It's like when you're riding a horse, you don't want the horse to see beyond his periphery because they get easily distracted. But it's not a good thing for us as people of God when we develop blind spots. We don't get to see the people around us. So it becomes a source of a concern when it comes to our relationship. We become so familiar with people around us that we overlook their simple acts of kindness, the support that they give, the love that they offer to us. So in Luke chapter 17, especially in the first 3 verses, we meet 10 men with a desperate need for healing. They saw their sickness clearly, but in their urgency, in their interest to just go about their life after they've been healed, nine of them didn't really took the moment to appreciate what they have just received. And that affected their relationship with Jesus Christ, with themselves, with others. Let's look at the passage. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." So in this passage, it tells us the story that Jesus has been traveling between Samaria and Galilee. Jesus has been doing a lot of traveling in his ministry. In his 3 years of ministry, he had been visiting people, places. And this is almost in the middle of nowhere, right? In between towns that have tension between one another. The Samaritans don't really see eye to eye with their fellow Jewish counterparts. It's sort of like a nether region, right? It's like a transient region that carried social, cultural, and religious tensions. Notice here, Luke described they stood at a distance. Because of their illness, being a leper in that day is something that people shunned upon, right? Because of the assumptions or the stigma of being or having a contagious disease. So due to their leprosy, they have been isolated from society. They have been pretty much ostracized from their family. They have no contact with people except with their fellow lepers. Made them ceremonially unclean. Having this sickness in their body, they've been shunned away. So this isolation illustrates a breakdown in their human relationship. You know, one thing that I appreciate with this story, it reminds us that affliction, common trials bring people together. As these 10 lepers became connected with one another. But that was it. That was their circle. Everyone else stood at a distance. They stood at a distance. They were careful not to, disappoint or not to scare people. So they stood at a distance. But not with Jesus. Okay? As a collective group, they cry out for mercy, knowing that they cannot heal themselves. They must have been hearing about Jesus too, because they knew who he was. Look at what they said here. Jesus, Master. Jesus has been traveling, demonstrating the power of God in his life, because he is the Son of God. So he's been doing some signs and miracles. People were in awe, especially when Jesus heals those who are sick. In our relationships, we depend on the support and care of those who are closest to us, especially our immediate family. Yet once our needs are met, we may forget to express gratitude. We take the road of thinking that, well, that's what they're there for, right? To take care of me. That feeling of, it's just natural that they do this for me. And they may have been thinking the same about Jesus. That's what Jesus does, right? So he just did what he was supposed to do, heal us. However, familiarity with those who love us or those around us can cause us to take their kindness for granted, leading to some kind of relational strains. When we fail to appreciate the love and sacrifice of others, we overlook the critical role they play in our well-being. I find this with spouses especially. When we do things for each other in the home, how often do we thank each other? Do we think that that's just natural because, hey, you're married to me, you're supposed to do good things for me? But how often do we thank them? Especially for the small things in life. The small things become significant, right? And maybe over a while, in our marriage, no matter how long, we take these things for granted. Both of us, both husband and wife may think that, hey, this is just part of marriage. So thanks, but no thanks, right? So we need to realize that expressing gratitude to one another is part of the spice of being married. It's what makes relationships work. Because we assume relationships should always be there for us without acknowledgement or appreciation. So in Luke chapter 17, in the first 3 verses we just read, it reveals a deep relational dynamic, one in which gratitude should have naturally flowed from being helped and being healed. Yet only one of them came back to realize that there was something miraculous that has happened to them, right? So similarly in our relationships, be it in husband and wife situation or other relationships we have, even at work, we are often quick to cry for help, but slow to return with gratitude. We expect that support from our loved ones, but then we forget to acknowledge their sacrifices that they make for us. Gratitude is not just formality, okay? Appreciation tells others that you need them in your life. Acknowledging their value with humility. That's what gratitude does. To say, hey, I cannot do this on my own. I need you. I need your presence in my life. I need your partnership. In a church setting, that's especially vital. How often we thank each other for the roles we play, for the relationships we have within the church. Especially as we come to critical times in our life as a church, when we are transitioning from year to year, or maybe from one crisis to another. The roles that people have played in order for us to get through that difficult moments in our life as a church. Do you know what the exact opposite of, or before we go there, I just wanted to just remind us. So, in relationships, gratitude helps. It's the catalyst for making relationships work. But ingratitude is the opposite. It hurts relationships. How many times have you been turned off when you did something and then there was no gratitude back, right? It's a big turnoff, right? It's something that makes you feel queasy, right? Makes you feel uncomfortable. So the relationship starts to degrade when we don't offer that thanksgiving or express that thanksgiving to one another. So let me go to my question here. Do you know the exact opposite of gratitude? And it's not ingratitude. It's entitlement. Okay? I believe this with all my heart. The Bible teaches this. Entitlement says, I deserve it, so I will demand it. Right? It's thinking that you owe that to me. Okay? So, because I deserve it, I'm not giving you thanks because you owe that to me. So can you imagine how hurtful this is if this becomes the place in your relationship, that feeling of being entitled? Gratitude will not flow in that relationship. Okay? Why is it the opposite of gratitude? Because while gratitude acknowledges dependence, entitlement assumes self-sufficiency. Okay? Gratitude comes from recognizing that we are dependent on God for all things. Our life, our abilities, and our resources. It humbles us because we know we are not self-made, but sustained by God's mercy alone. Entitlement, however, flips that mindset. It assumes that we are self-sufficient, that we can do things on our own. Okay? Our own efforts, we have an inherent worth, about almost arrogant, right? Entitlement is arrogance. It says, I've earned this. Okay? It puts yourself at the forefront. It makes you the most important person in your life, while gratitude says, I've been blessed with this. I recognize this is a gift. It should not have been given to me, but I have been given to it. Or I have been given this wonderful thing or privilege. Gratitude also recognizes grace, and entitlement deserves rights. It always asks, never gives. Okay? It focuses on rights. What is due to us? It says, I deserve better. I should have more. I deserve better than this. Right? So it's always one-sided. You're always asking for stuff. That's what entitlement is all about. And while gratitude cultivates contentment, guess what entitlement breeds? It breeds dissatisfaction. You can never be content when you're entitled. Okay, gratitude is deeply connected to contentment because when we are thankful for what we have, we stop striving for more or comparing ourselves to others. We rest in God's provision and find peace in what He has provided for today. It is resting in that moment to say, Lord, thank you for what I have now. I may not have enough, but what I have right now is what you have given. Thank you so much. Entitlement says, Lord, is this it? Is this all you give? And then it translates to our relationships. And that's the other thing. Gratitude draws us closer to God. Entitlement distance us from God. It puts us in the position of making demands of Him, expecting Him to fulfill our desires or our plans. When things don't go as we think they should, entitlement can lead to frustration with God, causing us to pull away rather than draw near. The reason I was away last week is I was at a church at Whitby. It's called Arise Church. They have a very sad, troubling story. Last year, in February of last year, their pastor, who was about my age, passed away. Very suddenly and shockingly. Brain aneurysm. In an instant, he passed away from this world. And as a result, that was the only time, I guess, in their life they recognized, the value of their pastor, his presence. And you can feel it in their fellowship, right? The sadness, the appreciation of the fact that, they are in this difficult moment. Back in July, they met Pastor Theron. Pastor Theron. And they took him in as their permanent pastor. Young as he is, new in the ministry. The challenge, of course, is Pastor Theron's vision is in mission. His heart is with mission. He's, I think, has been traveling in Asia in the last few weeks. He was in Thailand, he's in Nepal, he's in Burma, he's going to the Philippines soon. If not, he's already there. So in this two and a half months that he's away, they need supply in the pulpit. That's why they have asked for help across the GCF. Well, Pastor Theron asked for our help. And so we have been rotating in our preaching assignments in Whitby. And so it was my turn last Sunday. So that's why I missed being with you last Sunday. And then I think next Sunday it's Pastor Ferdy has been preaching there as well. He has another assignment coming up. But when you lose something or someone that important in your life, as a church, they rallied together. There's an elderly woman there, probably in her 70s, who did the pastoral prayer. That was beautiful to see because they realized they now have to step in because there's a gap. I hope you see what I mean. Hopefully, we don't have the gratitude kind of mentality that's fostered only by a lost remote control. We value their presence when they're there, not just when they are lost out of our sight. So in this story of the 10 lepers in Luke 17, the one who returned give thanks, or the one who returned to give thanks represents a heart of gratitude. He didn't feel entitled to his healing. He didn't feel that this was something that Jesus was supposed to do anyway. The moment he realized, that's why I was saying there's a timeliness in our gratitude. Later on, we will see that. The narrative says the moment he realized he was healed, on his way, all these 10 were instructed by Jesus to go to the priest to show themselves as a requirement of the Jewish traditional religious system. Before they even got to the priest, they were healed. And then when the moment that one leper, who was a Samaritan, by the way, that's significant, because this is as if Luke was saying all 9 of them were Jews. Only one was Samaritan, and he was the one who recognized the need to be grateful. The moment he recognized, he turned back, and instead of fulfilling his religious obligations, he went to the source of the blessing. The Bible tells us he threw himself at Jesus' feet. He was ecstatic. That's what gratefulness does to us. It creates that idea that life is a miracle. I don't deserve this, but I have it just the same. It's not because of what I've done or who I am. It's because of who God is. And so he threw himself, realizing that this is the most magical moment in his life, the most miraculous thing that has happened to him. So he gave thanks to the person who was due for it. So you see, cultivating a heart of gratitude helps us see the goodness of God in every situation. while entitlement robs us of the joy and peace that comes from recognizing God's grace in our lives. So we move to a next point, which is somewhat connected to the first one. It's the idea of routine blessings. How do we foster gratitude in every day? Can I ask you to close your eyes? Please close your eyes. Okay? I'm not going to take you into a trance, don't worry. I'm not into that new age thing. Close your eyes. Imagine your world without hot water. It's getting cold. Imagine taking a bath with no hot water, or drinking coffee with cold water or tea. Wet wipes. Imagine your world without wet wipes. Or ice cream. I just gave Brother Tony a heart attack. It's his favorite dessert. Imagine your world without cell phones, without Wi-Fi or data signal. Okay, you can open your eyes. Sometimes we need to think carefully about these things, right? Because they are a fixed thing in our lives. They exist every day. We expect them to be there when we wake up in the morning, don't we? We go to work. We're thinking, hey, boss, I need Wi-Fi to do my work. When that Wi-Fi is disrupted or we lose our signal, right? It's very valuable. Imagine we switched to Rogers a while back, and Rogers had this massive blackouts, right? That affected the entire nation. And some people called Rogers, and they got a good money back. Of course, Rogers won't voluntarily give out that information. Hey, call us, we can give you some kind of compensation for losing your cell phone signal for a day or two. But we called them, and the reason I say that is there's a value to that service, right? But we take these things for granted because it's there. So think about it in your own life. What one seemed like a blessing, a new job, a new marriage, a fresh relationship, a home, a house that you bought, a car that you now have. It becomes part of the background of our lives. So we grow accustomed to them. They become such a commonplace to us, the presence of these blessings. And so instead of viewing them as gifts, we start seeing them as just, they're there. So over time, this erodes our sense of appreciation. The presence of the familiar often dulls our sense of awe and appreciation. Imagine this leper, this one that came back. He saw his condition. He was totally healed. He knew he was in a bad place. He knew he was in an uncomfortable place. He knew he was distanced from society. Now he can go back. He knew why. It goes back to that triage earlier. He knew why he was grateful, and he knew who he needed to be thankful for. Right? In our lives, we see, because of expectations and entitlement again, the specialness, the uniqueness, the wonder starts to fade when we start to feel accustomed to the blessings we have been given. When the customary sets in, gratitude can evaporate or disappear altogether. So instead of being thankful for what we have, we complain or feel dissatisfied because the familiar no longer feels extraordinary. When gratitude should make the ordinary things in life even more extraordinary. Think of the most ridiculous or oblivious thing in your life. I was thinking about it the other day. I said, lint. I'm thankful for lint. You know, that thing that, sticks to your winter coat? I was trying to see what my winter coat I can use for when the weather gets cold, and it's full of lint. And so I had a hard time cleaning out this foolish lint. They won't get off. But it reminds me I have clothing. Right? when we're thankful, we can find every reason to appreciate what we have. How annoying they are makes it extraordinary, because it reminds us of the flip side, that we do have these things. They were given to us. So I hope you see what I mean. When we don't recognize that the routine blessings in our life are there to remind us of the obvious gifts that we have. In verses 14 to 16, we read, when Jesus Christ saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He had a fit, right? He was just giddy. He was so happy. He was rejoicing. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. He wasn't even expected to do that, yet he did. So in this part of the story, Jesus responds to the leper's cry for mercy with a command: go and show yourselves to the priest. This is something so wonderful and, really significant about what Jesus says. He doesn't say you're healed. He says, go and show yourselves to the priest. He tells them a very routine thing, something they understood and knew, even that Samaritan, because it was commanded in Leviticus chapter 14, that whenever you have a skin disease, you must present yourself to the priest so that the priest can declare whether you're okay to merge with society once again. So this was in accordance to what was routine in their lives, what was expected for them to do. And all the 10 lepers obeyed Jesus, just as expected, right? However, only one came back. The unexpected thing. But maybe it's not as unexpected for Jesus, as we shall see later. So in our daily lives, God pours out countless blessings: health, provision, family, safety, and more, often in ways that become so routine. We barely notice these things because they're there. They hover in the background. We expect them to be there, right? But this act of returning is significant. While the other 9 were focused on the religious routine of showing themselves to the priest, the Samaritan was moved by something deeper, an awareness that his healing was a divine gift that deserved immediate gratitude. He was not going to delay. Can you imagine if it took a day or two for him to come back and thank Jesus? It would have lost some kind of value, right? The timing was important in this story. So while obedience to religious practices was important in their day, even in today's world, when we do things like ministry, when we come to service every Sunday, when we attend Bible studies, when we connect with each other in growth groups, it can sometimes become mechanical, causing us to miss the heart of what God is doing in our lives. Gratitude opens our hearts and our minds. It broadens the horizon of our faith journey, right? And true gratitude is not just following the rules. It's not just going through the motions. It's about recognizing God's work in every part of our life, even in the most routine things that take place in us. In the case of the 9 who received physical healing, but only one returned to thank Jesus, he experienced a deeper, more complete restoration. Because you see, when God does something miraculous in our lives, He wants us to remind ourselves that it's not about that act itself. It's about bringing us into a profound relationship with Him. Whenever God does this in our lives, He does something more. And we need to recognize what that more is. His healing was not just about the body. It's about being in a right relationship with the one who gave him this miracle. Without gratitude, we can experience blessings without truly understanding or appreciating their significance. Gratitude has the ability to open our hearts to recognize God's invisible but ongoing work, so that He can invite us to a deeper relationship with Him. And one thing I learned from these 3 verses in our passage is that gratitude requires intentionality, right? We must intentionally return, run back, give thanks to God for the blessings in our lives, no matter how big or small they may be. And our wholeness, our blessedness, our holiness and righteousness will often stem from a heart that is grateful. It is the recipe for repentance. It's the recipe for humility. Once we recognize what we are thankful for. I mentioned to you Anne Voskamp. She's one of our favorite authors in our family. We have her book. It's called 1,000 Gifts. In that book, she wrote, by the way, in that book, she thanked the Lord for pink pigs. You notice how pigs are pink sometimes? Maybe that's when they're about to be slaughtered. They become pink because they're scared. Sorry, I just threw that visual away. But she was thanking God for the colors of fall, right? My wife and Tita Vanji and Tita Josie was out there this morning taking pictures because this will disappear in a day or 2. So take the opportunity to take this wonderful fall colors. Anne Voskamp, in that book, she said, "No amount of regret changes the past. No amount of anxiety changes the future. But any amount of gratitude changes the present." Because gratitude is perspective. Right? Do you want to see it as bad or good? When you see it as good, you become grateful for it. And even when things are bad, you can be thankful. Because you know that it's tied to what God is trying to accomplish in your life. The 9 may have been focused on what they had lost in the past, or were anxiously looking ahead to what their newly restored lives could hold, but the one who returned understood the changing power of gratitude, of being grateful in the moment, in the present. So as Anne Voskamp says, gratitude changes the present. It shifts our focus from what we cannot control, past regrets or future worries, and anchors us in the goodness of God right now, in this moment. These things are important. The future is important. But God wants us to savor the moment, the present, because He has control over the future. Relinquish that control and be grateful for the present that you have today. And then lastly, rediscovering your bearing. It's about finding what we can be thankful for God's grace. So as Jesus wraps up the story, He asks a very profound question that cuts to the heart of the matter. It's a moment that calls us to rediscover our bearings. Where are we oriented today? To recognize when we've strayed into ingratitude and return to the source of our healing and grace. This is the question that Jesus asked. Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? This person that I don't even expect to understand? He understood. He got it. Then He said to him, "Rise and go, your faith has made you well." Profound statements from Jesus. He's making a commentary about great gratitude. First of all, His commentary is that gratitude is rare. We only see it in 10% of people. That's what He's saying. The other thing that you can feel from Jesus is He's very upset. Right? He's annoyed. Where's the other 9? Didn't I do good stuff to this 10 and only 1 came back? There's a certain level of expectation from Jesus. Right? God is always on the lookout not only for faithful people, but thankful people. Before He mentioned faith, He mentioned gratitude. Gratitude feeds our faith. They're linked together. You cannot have faith in God that you're not thankful for. All the 10 lepers received physical healing, a powerful miracle that changed their lives. And by the way, Jesus is not looking because he needs the validation or recognition. Far from it. He's looking for gratitude because it's for our own good. He knows that it's good for us. It's healthy for us to be thankful. It is for us. It's not for him. He can raise the stones, and the stones can express gratitude to him. It is to cultivate a righteous spirit ingrained in a grateful heart that's tied to our faith. This may be rhetorical questions from Jesus, but these are deeply surgical, spiritual questions that he's asking. Okay? We often receive God's blessings, but we fail to respond with the kind of deep gratitude that leads to a more profound relationship with him. True faith always leads to gratitude, and gratitude in turn deepens our faith. Gratitude is an essential expression of faith because it acknowledges that the blessing came from God. When we fail to express gratitude for God's grace, whether in salvation, provision, or answered prayer, we are in effect demonstrating a lack of faith in the ongoing work of God in our lives. It's called spiritual short-sightedness. It's not just about ingratitude. It's a failure to fully trust and depend on God. It is not being able to recognize him for who he is. So neglecting to thank God for his grace will cause us to drift away from him, making our faith shallow and merely transactional. God, I need you for these things. Everything else, it's okay. You can step out of the picture. But when I need you to be there, okay? And when you've done stuff, let's go to the next. Okay? It becomes a checklist. It becomes a routine, monotony. It becomes dry. That's why there's the grating attitude of ingratitude. We talked about this. I'm just summarizing it. It bolsters discontentment. The more ungrateful we are, okay, the more we amplify the sense that life is unfair. It's insufficient, creating a cycle of discontent that can be difficult to escape. It breeds entitlement. We spoke about this already. So ingratitude is arrogance, while gratitude is humility. It helps us to see that everything we have is a gift. It also brings chastisement, okay? As we harden our hearts through ingratitude, God may allow us to experience consequences that draw us back to a place of humility and reliance on him. And lastly, which is important, it breaks our enjoyment of life because we're constantly seeking for the things that we deserve, right? While gratitude, on the opposite, helps us delight in the present, and we find joy in every circumstance. That's what gratitude does. So ingratitude distorts our perspective. It diminishes our ability to live a joyful, content, and humble life. It's important to close with this verse from the Apostle Paul. He said the most profound thing in the New Testament, apart from these lessons, of course. 2 Corinthians 9:15, he declares, "Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift." He talked about the person of Jesus and the gift of salvation that we had been given. Okay, why is this ultimately the most we can be thankful for? Because the gospel calls for our thankfulness. We receive what we don't deserve. The gospel reminds us that we are saved by grace, not by our merit, not by our works. We did nothing to earn salvation. And when we recognize this, it should lead to a heart of gratitude. We are grateful for a new life in Christ. Jesus made us new. He could have left us on our own, but he did not. He sent his son to die on the cross, opening this life of change and transformation from sin and death into life and righteousness that naturally sparks gratitude for the new beginning he offers to us. and just the daily grace and provision we have received. He wants the good for us. Romans 8:32. He causes all things to work out for good for us, even though we don't deserve them. He provides for us daily, every moment. That understanding should deepen our appreciation for both spiritual and physical blessings. And lastly, gratitude fuels worship. To offer us our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. The gospel, the good news we get from God through Jesus Christ, compels us to offer our lives as a living testimony, an act of gratitude for all that God has done through us, to us through Jesus Christ. In short, the gospel of Jesus Christ not only saves us, but also changes us into people of gratitude, continually pointing us to the truth that everything we have is a gift, and that all these gifts came from God only by His grace to us. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank You for the reminder today that every blessing, every good gift comes from Your hand. Help us to be a people who, like the one leper, return to You with hearts full of gratitude for all that You've done. May we never take Your grace for granted, but live each day with thankfulness, grounded in Your goodness. As we go from this place, fill us with a spirit of gratitude that overflows into every part of our lives, pointing others to Your love and mercy. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Last but not least, remember, gratitude is not just about being polite. It is a way of life. It is a habit, it's a practice that we need to cultivate, especially as children of God, each and every day until Jesus comes again, and even after that. Amen.